This is the last section of stuff we're going to do for this 2017, right?
Yay.
This is our last class of new stuff for 2017. Are you okay?
Yeah, I was
I
stretching.
don't know if I go to the bathroom or something. And this is the last thing new stuff we'll do for 2017. Tomorrow will be review, a little bit of MCAS. I think this stuff you guys are gonna understand a little bit more. I think you have a little bit more familiarity with this stuff. What word, saying you go up a little bit, just what word or what phrase do you guys see on there that's familiar? There may be more than one. Okay? Slope, intercept, form. We've talked about it, right? Will? Writing, okay. Equation, all that stuff we're talking about. But this is the big thing. Slope, intercept, form. Yes, we're talking about that again. Alright? We know it. We've talked about it last academic week. You guys have talked about it in middle school. Alright? So today we're going to practice writing equation of lines in slope, intercept, form. Now, we're going to do it. There'll be 4 different ways that we're going to do it. First way is we're going to give you the slope, and we're going to give you the y-intercept, and we're going to say write us an equation. That's one way we'll do it. All right. Second way, we're going to give you a graph. You have to figure out the slope, figure out the y-intercept, put it in slope-intercept form. Third way, we're going to give you 2 sets of coordinates. So we'll give you like one coordinate like this, one coordinate like this. We'll give you two sets of coordinates, and we'll say, okay, write it in slope-intercept form. And the last way we'll do it is we'll talk about we'll give you guys like linear functions, like f of 3 equals -5, f of 0 equals like 2. We'll give you something like that. I think this way, when we have to write it from a linear equation or given 2 sets of coordinates, may be a little more difficult. I think the first 2 ways we have to write it, we give you the slope and the y-intercept, and when we give you the graph, will be a little bit more, not as challenging as that stuff. Okay? So first thing, what's the equation or the formula that we use for slope-intercept form? I should see a bunch of hands come up, like almost every hand.
Oh, y equals mx+b.
Right?
There you go.
X couldn't handle it. He had to get it out for everybody to see. Alright? So, y equals mx+b. So on your notes, you want to make sure, because you have the arrows on your notes, make sure that your m lines up under that first arrow. Make sure your b lines up under your second arrow. So make sure they line up. Alright? So, m. Someone talking about raising their hand. What does M stand for? Or, this might help other people. When we're talking about slope-intercept form, what number is always with the x? Paige?
Slope.
Slope. Very good. Does anybody remember the formula that we use to find slope only? Not slope-intercept form, not y equals mx+b, just to find slope. Joe?
Isn't it v2 plus v1?
V2 close.
I mean y.
Y2, keep going.
Plus y.
Not plus.
I mean minus.
Yeah.
Under then
Divided.
slash.
Yeah.
And then x2 minus x.
Very good. Alright, so like we talked about, that is going to be our slope. Remember, slope equals rise over run. So underneath your arrow, you want to write in slope. Remember, slope means rise over run.
There's a spot for it though. I think so. Yeah, it says on here it's like slope equals rise over run.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So just with that arrow points, write slope. Then on the right hand side of your notes where it says slope equals, write rise over run, and then
I just
write slope here under M. And then on your notes where it says slope equals, write rise over run here, and then write y2 minus y1 minus y2. Everybody got that?
Wait, that's the.
No.
So on your notes, so yeah, I'll get a copy.
No, I like your head.
So you wrote in slope-intercept form here. So where this arrow is pointing, you should have wrote slope. Alright, so we know that M is the slope. Where it says slope over here, I want you to write where it says slope over here, write rise over run. Then you have your other equal sign. Then you write the actual formula to find slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Everybody understand that? You're all on the same page? Everybody got that? Will, you good?
Yep.
Thanks, man. You're a real legend.
Yes.
So everybody's good with that? Yes, we're all on the same page. Savannah, what does the B stand for? Y-intercept. Let's scroll down here. We know it's y-intercept. So if we're doing y-intercept as a coordinate, all right, if we have whatever coordinate has 0 with it, the other number is your y-intercept. Right? Now you may be able to find it based on a graph, but whatever coordinate we're always going to give, when we're doing this stuff, we're always going to give you one coordinate that has 0 in it. Whatever the other number is, that is your y-intercept. So whatever number was here, this was 3, your y-intercept would be 3. If it was 0, 5, your y-intercept would be 5. If it was 0, -3, your y-intercept would be -3. So if we're giving you a coordinate, whatever coordinate has a 0 with it, the other number is the y-intercept. Does that make sense? Okay. Next we got on here. So, like we talked about first, the first way we're going to use slope-intercept form is we're going to tell you what the slope and y-intercept is, and you have to write it in slope-intercept form. So you guys already have written on there, obviously everything we do today, we're going to use y equals mx plus b. You already have that written on your notes anyways. Next thing, you might be able to fill in this blank. Identify where the line crosses the y-axis. Where your line, or your slope, where the line crosses the y-axis, what is that called? We've already talked about it.
Your slope.
Not your slope.
M.
Where it crosses the y-axis. What is that called, Will?
Intercept.
What intercept?
The y-intercept.
Y-intercept, right? So we just filled in that blank. Alright? So, next thing on there is plug in your slope given for M. So the only thing you have to write in is just the M, right?
Yeah.
M is always slope, or the number with X is always the slope. So whatever we give you for a slope, you'll write that number with X next to it. We just talked about the last bullet, all right? You're going to plug in the y-intercept given for B. We're going to give you the y-intercept, all right? You have to tell us, you have to fill, you have to write it in, all right? So let's look at the first example. Nothing else on this page, right? Okay. Let's look at this one. So here it is. We're giving you the slope. We're giving you the y-intercept. We just have to write it in slope-intercept form now. Every way we do it today, whether we give you a graph, we give you the slope and y-intercept, we give you 2 sets of coordinates. Every time you write this formula, what does it have to start with?
Y.
Y and what else? Equals. Every time we do these, it's always going to start with y equals. Next thing on your steps, it said, plug in slope given for B. Fred, what's the slope given? What slope do they give us? What number? What slope do they give us in this problem? -3. So I'm going to write, the slope's the next thing in the formula, I'm going to write -3.
Are we writing it down on the y on the bottom?
Where it says, this is going to be example 1, right? Where it says slope, write -3. Where it says y-intercept, write 1/2.
No, he doesn't mean that. He says like right here.
Right underneath the slope.
He said y equals right there.
Yeah, you can put it right. Yeah, that's good. I'm sorry, well, I didn't realize that was there. Yeah, good question. Yes, you can write it. You can write it to the bottom there. It says y equals. You can write it to the right. Yes, you can. So you have on your notes over here. It says y equals. Then there's a line. So I'll change this. I'm sorry. All right. So we'll put -3 here. Now, what do I have to do next? Sophia?
Plus 1/2.
Okay.
What do you at the
x. Good catch. What'd you say? I heard you say something. I liked what you said.
I said, what did you add for x to the -3?
Yeah, make sure. This is something that you just have to know. You have to make sure that you put the x with the y, with the slope. Remember last week, we did kind of the opposite. We asked you to identify the slope, and we said, we gave you this, we gave you the equation, and we asked you to identify the slope, and we said, make sure you don't write the x. Today, or this week, we're giving you the slope and the y-intercept, and asking you to create the equation, so you have to make sure that you put the slope. You have to make sure you put an x with the slope. So kind of like the opposite of last week. Last week we said, don't write the x. This week we have to, so you know. That's it. There's nothing else more you have to do. It's that simple. You have to do no more than that. Just write it in, you just wrote it in slope-intercept form. Now, on your notes, there's no space for example B. That's okay. You don't have to write it down. Let's just go through it together. Make sure everybody's on the same page. We'll move on to the next thing. All right, the next way. So let's look at it. We got a slope of 0 and a y-intercept of -2. Just like I said in the first one, whether we're doing this method, we're doing it based on a graph, we're doing it based on 2 sets of coordinates. What's the first 2 things I always have to write? I just said it's not on there. You don't have to write it down. So no, y equals. Every time we do this, we have to start with y equals. You don't have to write this down. We're just reviewing. All right.
Y equals 0x.
Okay. 0x. So what does 0 mean? We have no slope. So when it says 0 for slope, or if it said 0 for y-intercept, don't even put it. And in this case, slope has the x with it, right? We don't have to put a number with x. We don't need to. All right? I'm just going to write y equals what?
X
We don't need an x.
So just -2?
Exactly. What this means is slope equals 0. There is no slope. There is no number with x. That's what that means. There's no number with x. Because if we put y equals x minus 2, you're telling me the slope is 1. Even though the 1's not written with the x, we know that. So if the slope is 0, you put nothing. No number with x, nothing at all. All you have to put is the y-intercept. Same thing if I said the y-intercept was 0. You just put a number with x. All right? Special case, right? Because there's only one letter. That's a special case. All right? So if there's no slope, write nothing for it. If there's no y-intercept, write nothing for it. You don't have to put 0. Just write nothing. Nothing at all. Okay? Good? Again, moving through that one. Now, next way we're going to talk about is we're going to give you a graph and ask you to put it in slope-intercept form. All right? So, same deal. Everyone we do today, it's always going to be in y equals mx plus b. It's always going to be that way. All right? Next thing, let's identify where the line crosses the y-axis. Where the line crosses the y-axis, what is that called? Y-intercept, good job. Or what letter is represented as the y-intercept in the formula? B. So you guys basically just told me how to fill in those blanks. All right? When the line crosses the y-axis, is the y-intercept or the b? So that's going to be the last thing in your formula. That'll be the last thing you have to write. All right? That'll be the last thing you have to write. Whatever number it crosses on the y-axis, you'll put that last. Make sure you put the sign with it. All right? Now, we want to count, right? If it's a positive slope, how would we count? In what direction? Say it, Gemini.
Up into...
Which way?
Right.
To the right, yeah? So we're going to count. If it's a positive slope, right? Remember from last academic week, a positive slope is going to look like this. It's going to go up and to the right. So like Gemini just told us, when we figure out what it is, we want to count up and to the right. Count. We're going to give you 2 points on that line. Count from the bottom point up till you get to the line where your other point is. Once you get there, stop. How high did you go? That'll be your top number in your slope. Then, how many did you go over to get where that point is? All right? So you're going to count up and to the right. It'll be a fraction. Make sure you simplify, right? If you can simplify, simplify. If it was like 3, if you counted 3 up and 3 to the right, you get 3 over 3, right? What does that simplify to?
1.
1. What if you went up 6, right 3? What does it simplify to?
2.
2. All right? Vice versa. If you went 3 up and 6 over, what's that going to simplify to? 1/2, right? Because 3 goes into both. I'll get 1 over 2. All right? So you have to simplify. Now, positive slope. We just did a positive slope. How about a negative slope? What direction am I going to count? Page?
Down to the left.
Careful. I like down.
Down to the right.
Down to the right. We're never, in fact, we talked about last academic week. We're never going to go left. Because if I counted down to the left, it makes a line like this. Why is that a problem?
Because it's a positive.
That's a positive slope. We don't want that. It's a negative slope, right? So negative slope, we're going to count down. Right? So count from the point that's on the top, down, to where you get to the line where the other point is. Stop once you get there. That's your top number. Then count right. However many you go to the right, that's your bottom number. Same rules apply. All right? Simplify. You have to simplify. It says here, fraction of top number is negative. As long as they have Mr. Hager and I are going to be picky. As long as there's a negative number there, or a negative sign there, it's fine. If it's in between, on the top, on the bottom, we don't care. But if you don't put a negative sign there, then we have to take points off. All right? I don't care. We don't care if it's like, say we have 1/2, right? I don't care if it's like this. I don't care if it's like that. I don't care if it's like this, in between both of them. All of those are fine. But if there's no negative sign there, that's when we have a problem. All right? Everybody okay with this? Yes. All right? So let's do an example. Here's our graph. You guys have this exact same graph on your paper. All right. So first thing, we know it's going to be in y equals mx plus b. Like I said, I think 2 or 3 times today. What's the first 2 things? Someone tell me by raising their hand. What's the first 2 things we have to write? X? Y equals. Every time. You always start that way. Y equals. On your steps, right? So we said use y equals mx plus b. We've already started that. What's the next thing it says?
Equation.
No, we're on given a graph. I just did the top bullet. I'm on the second bullet. What's it say to do, Paige?
Identify where the line crosses y-axis.
The y-axis. So look at it, Paige. Where does, not the x-axis, where it crosses the y-axis. Where does that blue line cross the y-axis? At what number? Look at it, Paige. -3. So I'm going to leave a little space. Why am I going to leave a little space right here?
So you can fit the slope.
Exactly. I'm going to fit the slope there. -3. Leave some space. Make sure you put that number at the end. All right? Now, we talked a little bit about this at the beginning. Another way, if you weren't sure, remember we said whatever coordinate has the 0 with it? Right? There it is. There's a coordinate with 0. The other number that's not 0 is our y-intercept. So you could have done it that way too. If you weren't sure where it crossed the y-axis, just look, okay, this one's got the 0, the other number's my y-intercept. So we did that. What are we going to figure out now? Sometime by raising their hand. What are we going to figure out now? We just figured out the y-intercept. What do you got, Sophia? The slope, right? Is this going to be a positive slope, based on what we talked about last academic week? Positive slope or a negative slope?
Negative.
I say positive, right? Remember, positive goes up to the right. It's going up into the positive numbers. Okay. So, we wrote it down. How do I count? What page?
To the right.
So I'm going to start at the bottom point, and count up till I hit the line that the other point is on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what should I do?
Up 6.
I should stop and do what? Huh?
Drive. Put it down.
All right, I'm going to put 6. Should I put anything else?
Yeah.
Dash, like,
A little fraction line, right?
it's over 4.
So I've stopped, and X has said it's over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Over 4. Remember, I'm not going to put this into the equation right away. Why am I not going to put it in the equation right away, Paige?
So you have to simplify.
You may have to simplify. You may not have to, but it's a good idea. I suggest that write down the numbers first and see if you can simplify. If
Oh,
not,
wait, that's how you do it?
That's
Oh,
it.
I got that right.
okay. So now I can simplify, Jack. I can simplify here, right? I know. I'm not going to call you anyways. Can I simplify that?
Sure.
What number goes into both?
2.
2. I can divide both the top and the bottom by 2. When I do that, Jack, what do I get?
3 and 2.
3 over 2. I'm going to come up. That's why I left that space like Sophia told me, so I can write my slope in. 3 over 2. Remember, it's the opposite of last week. What do I have to make sure that I do? Paige?
At the end.
Add the x. Remember we told you last week, when we asked you to identify slope, we said you don't have to include the x. But now we're not identifying the slope anymore, we're putting in the slope-intercept form. So we have to make sure we put the x. People on the same page? We're good?
Yes.
I guess so, okay.
Yeah, we're good.
There's another one here. Again, it's not on your notes. That's okay. You do not have to write it down. I repeat, you do not have to write it down. Josiah, you don't have to write it down this time. Okay. Alright, so this one. Will, what am I starting with? Every time, what do I start with?
Any what?
Any time, what do I always start with? Anytime I do
Oh,
it,
y.
y equals. Very good. Next thing, someone tell me. We can do either or. I don't care what order you do it in. Gemini?
You have to, like, the point on the Y.
Y-axis, what is it? 2 in this case is 2. Again, it could also be the number with 0. I don't care. Alright? The number with 0 is 2, or it crosses the y-axis at 2. Okay. Now what? Is that a positive 2 or negative 2?
Negative. The positive.
Positive 2. So make sure I put a plus. Alright? Is there anything else I could, before I do anything else, is there anything else I could put there in like preparation for what's going to happen next?
On X.
I can put an X, right? Just getting ready. How do I figure out that number with X?
You're gonna count down to the right.
Down to the right. What kind of a slope is this? If I'm going, it's negative, so I can put a little negative sign here too, so I don't forget. There's my negative sign. You know what I'm also going to do? I'm going to draw my little fraction bar, so I'm ready.
It's negative 3.
He says, you said negative 3 over 3? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I went down 3. Remember, just write it off to the side to make sure, so you may have to simplify. And it's negative 3. And then I went, X says I go right 3. 1, 2, 3. I do. What happens? What does that simplify to, Mallory? Go ahead. Negative 1. So I don't even need this fraction bar. I don't need it. I can just erase it and just put negative 1. What happened, buddy? What happened?
Down 2.
No, because you have to count this. You have to count this line too. Will, that's part of it. 1, even though it's black, that's like 0. That's like 0 on the y-axis. We have to count. Remember, some of you guys do this. You don't have to count. Don't go 1, 2. Doesn't work that way. If you're playing a board game, right? Like Monopoly or something like that, you don't count the space you're on. You don't go 1, 2. You go 1. You don't count the space that you're on. You go to the next space. All right? That would be negative 1x plus 2. Or it could be this way. Either way works. If you put negative 1x, that's fine. If you put negative x, that's fine too. They both mean the same thing. Everybody with me so far? So again, now we've written in slope-intercept form using this given the y-intercept and the slope. We've done it based on a graph. This stuff now may be a little bit different than what you've seen before. So now we're going to do it given two sets of coordinates. Just like everything else, all right? We're going to use y equals mx plus b. It's already written there for you. We do it every time, all right? Now, the next thing says the number in the coordinate with 0 is the what? We've already talked about this. What's the number in the coordinate, the other number with 0? X? X-intercept. Y-intercept. What letter represents that in the equation? B. All right? So we just kind of filled in those blanks. So the number in the coordinate with 0. So you have 0, comma, whatever that number is. 0, comma, something. This is your y-intercept. That's going to be your y-intercept. Whatever the other number is with 0, that's going to be your y-intercept. All right? So in your blanks, you're going to write y-intercept or you write b. Next thing. In this case, all right, because we're not given a graph anymore, so we can't count. All right, so we have to use the y2 minus the y1, x2 minus x1. We have to use that now because we have no graph that we can count. We have to plug it into that formula. That formula is going to give me what? The slope. Good. What letter represents slope in the formula? M. Perfect. So in that little blank there, we have you have some space. We have some space where it says use. You'll write this. First blank, slope. After or, you're going to write in the letter M. Everybody with me? We're okay. Okay. So let's look at it. Look at the next example. So it says write an equation of the line that passes through the given points. All right? So here we go. Now, scroll down a little bit. What should my equation start with?
Y equals.
Good job, Masai. Y equals?
2 points.
2 points for Gryffindor. All right. Now,
Do Harry Potter?
Yes.
how we can find the y. Let's go up. We can find the y-intercept, right? Someone tell me, what's it going to be?
-1.
Why -1, Sophia?
Because it's next to 0.
Because that's another way to think. Like Sophia just said, it's next to the x. Whatever number is next to the x, that's always going to be your y-intercept. Leave space, correct? Why am I going to leave space? I'm going to put my slope in, right? -1. Now I'm going to figure out my slope. All right? So what's the formula to figure out my slope?
Y2 minus Y1 over x2.
Agreed. So, if I'm looking at these coordinates, what's -3 going to be? Is that an x coordinate or a y coordinate?
That's an
X, like the alphabet, right? X. What's the 5 going to be?
1.
Y. What's the 0 going to be?
X.
What's the -1 going to be? I don't care how you do it. If you want this to be x2 and that to be y2, that's fine. I don't care. But this can't be x2 and this can be y1. If you're saying this is the second x coordinate, this has to be the second y coordinate. It has to be that way. So let's just say, for the sake of it, we'll make this y2, we'll make this x1, we'll make that y1. People understand how that you have to be consistent? Does that make sense? You can't make the x. You can't make this x1 and make this y2. If you're considering this your second set of coordinates, that's fine. That's going to be your first set. You can't bounce back and forth. Will, question?
Just in this case.
Oh no.
You okay? All right. So, I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to draw my minus signs. Remember, I've told you guys this before. Just because maybe your second I mean your first y coordinate, whatever you're considering your first y coordinate, whatever you're considering your first x coordinate, even if they're negative, they don't take the place of these. Like, oh, it's negative, so I can just put it in there, it's all taken care of. No, that's gonna cause 2 negatives in a row. That's okay when you're doing this. If you have 2 negatives in a row, it's not a problem. It's okay. All right? So y2, Ginny, what's y2? 5. I'm going to put 5. What's y1, Ginny?
1,
Negative 1. There's a situation, right? You just can't put -1. The minus is part of the formula. I have to put that there. Then, like X just said, I got 2 negatives in a row, so what happens? Becomes a plus. I just connect them and make them a plus. On the bottom, I got my x2, x1. No, what's x2?
-3.
-3. And what's x1? 0, right? Perfect. Do the math. On the top, what do I get?
-6.
On the bottom,
-3.
just like we talked about before. Slope, you always want to see if you can do what?
Simple.
Simplify. All right? Can I simplify, Savannah? What do I simplify to?
-1/2.
You
can do it to 2.
over -1.
This means 6 divided by -3.
Oh wait,
Okay.
Two over
-2.
-2. You just need to know, Paige, when you graph, that there's an imaginary 1 underneath. We don't have to put the 1 underneath. Just leave it as a big -2. All right? So let's go back. Y equals. Someone just said, I have to mumble it, -2x -1. People feel okay about that.
C.
Not the greatest. Better than you did yesterday with this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good thing. All right? Guys, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to do B. I got one more way I want to show you, and then we're done. Example 5 we won't get to. We'll do that. It's a word problem. We want to make sure we spend some time on it. And it's something like this is on the test on Thursday, so we'll do that tomorrow. That's part of it. Remember, tomorrow we'll stop class, and we'll do the MCAS question. It won't take the whole period. We'll have time at the end to review, and also give you time, guys, time to print out your reference sheet. All right? So we'll do the last type of problem. Linear function. All right? So, same deal we talked about. We're going to put it in y equals mx+b. Write down y equals, like we've done every time today. All right? We've talked about the second bullet. What am I going to fill in those 2 blanks with? The number in the corner with 0 is the... What's all?
Oh, that's again.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. All right. So f of whatever this is right here, whatever number is written inside those parentheses, that's going to be your x coordinate.
So what would be in those parentheses?
Could be anything. Could be -2, could be 5, could be 17, could be 365,555.
Whoa.
Whatever you want.
What?
All right. The number after the equal sign. So you get like, if it said like f of, oops, I'm mistaken, x equals. So whatever is here in this spot, that's going to be your x. Whatever is here will be your y. So whatever's inside the parentheses will be your x. Whatever's outside will be your y. Right? We're writing a coordinate, we're just writing it in a different way. All right? So number after, okay, we taught this. So if you want to jot that down, guys, you can too. All right? And when it says f of 0, all right? So it says f of 0 equals something. What coordinate is the 0? If I look at this, based on what we wrote over here, what coordinate is the 0? The x, right? Remember we said before, right? Sophia said it earlier, whatever number's next to the 0 is your what? Your y-intercept. Same thing here. This is just what we were doing before. We have like something, comma, something like that. That's coordinate notation. We have this, f 0, 0. equals something. So here, this is x, this is y. This is function notation. This is a different way to write a coordinate. This is your x. Oops, sorry, mistake. This is your x, this is your y. So it's just a different way to write a coordinate. It means the same thing, it's just written a different way. Like we talked about before, any number written in f of whatever still means y. We've talked about that before. Alright? We did that.
What's the to find blank label?
So label, same thing. We'll still use y2, we'll still use that formula to find the slope. When we do that, that'll give us our slope or our m. Right? So those will be the last two blanks on that page. Right? So the last bullet says label x and y and use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's going to find our slope or our m. Don't have a huge mind. Don't blow your minds. We did them before where x and y, right? This is coordinate notation. When we write it this way, that's function notation. They mean the exact same thing. So we're almost doing the same thing we did before this, but it's just written a different way. So let's go down. So we'll write a linear function with the values. So I'm gonna take these and I'm gonna write them down here.
Y equals
10, I'm going to write f of 6 equals 34. We know we're going to start with y equals, all right? In these coordinates, right, what's our y-intercept going to be? Say x, 10, why is it 10x?
I don't know, I just say 10.
Someone explain why 10 is going to be the y-intercept.
Because it's f of 0.
Say it, Sophia.
Savannah.
Savannah.
This f of 0 is equal to...
It has the 0, right? Again, it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
I was getting
It has the 0. Is that a positive 10 or a negative 10?
That's a positive 10.
Positive 10. Alright, so 0. What coordinate is that?
34.
Is that an x or a y?
X.
That's an x. What's the 10? X or a y?
Y.
Down here, f of 6. Is that an x? And this is a y. I don't care how we do it. Let's call f of 0, we'll call it x1, we'll call that y1, we'll call this x1, I'm sorry, x2, y2. I'm just going to take them and plug it in. y2, 34, minus y1, 10, over x2, which is 6, minus x1, 0. Everybody okay? Remember, this is function notation. Means the same thing as coordinate notation. I'll do my math. 24 over 6. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 4x.
That's a 28.
Huh?
That's an 8.
Where's an 8? This is a 4.
4.
Sorry, man. It's really bad handwriting.
What? That's an 8.
Sounds like squid.
4.
Oh,
Is that better? Alright, and that is our thing. Like I said, the word problem, don't worry about it. We'll do it tomorrow. Alright? Homework 4.1, tomorrow, MCAS question. We'll also have time to review. Alright, test on Thursday. You can use a reference sheet. We will see you guys on Friday. Nothing new on Friday.